How many people in the room are filmmakers or would identify as a filmmaker? Excellent. Thanks so much for being here. So how many people are just really interested in what we're going to talk about today? Just real big fans. Great. Awesome. So wonderful. This is a panel put on by Women in Film and Video of New England as part of a partnership with the Woods Hole Film Festival. And as you can see, we're going to talk about getting your film made, seen, and sold, and talk about that process. And I would like to introduce Women in Film's secretary, Grace Mary, who's going to be helping.
We are the New England branch of Women in Film, which is a national and international organization. And we try to uplift all under-recognized voices, including women, but all others as well. We have a variety of offerings. We have educational opportunities, like our Director Shadow program. We have networking events every month, both in person and virtual. And we are having all these events all throughout all 6 New England states. And we have over 500 members. So I encourage you all to join us as part of Women in Film. Now I want to introduce these lovely people I have next to me. I will start with Maura. As a graduate of the USC Cinema Department, Maura Smith went on to direct Towing with Sue Lyon and Joe Mantegna. While being an honor student in the MFA screenwriting program at Columbia University, Smith received first prize for the Zeki Gordon Memorial Award for excellence in screenwriting. Smith has directed for such companies as Sony Music, BBC TV, and Paramount.
Yay!
Yes, thank you. Next to her is Andrew Mudge. He's a writer, director, and producer with a passion for original, character-driven storytelling. A Sundance alumnus, his music video, Knights of Bostonia, won the MTV Viewers' Choice Award, and his short film, The Perfect Goosies, was acquired by HBO and won him the Chrysler $1 Million Film Festival. His debut feature film, The Forgotten Kingdom, was selected for the prestigious IFP Narrative Filmmaker Labs and has garnered top awards at over 10 international film festivals, as well as 7 nominations and 3 wins from the African Movies Academy Awards, AMAA. He has recently completed his second feature, The Arborist, which has been picked up by Dark Sky Films for worldwide distribution. Next to him is Wendy Lobel. She's a director and Emmy Award-winning producer with 30 years of experience in TV and film. Her work has aired on networks such as PBS, A&E, VH1, MSNBC, Nickelodeon, and more. She produced more than 25 episodes of the acclaimed children's series Nick News with Linda Ellerby. Anxiety Club 2024 Doc NYC Film Festival marks her feature directorial debut. Drawing on her personal experience with anxiety, she brings a heartfelt authenticity and profound understanding of its themes to this film. Wendy also serves as vice president of Angelite Films, a nonprofit that empowers children with brain tumors to create their own short films. And next to her is Dan Mirvish. He's an award-winning filmmaker, author. And he's directed and produced features 18 and a Half, Bernard and Huey, Between Us, Open House, and Omaha the Movie. Dan's film screened in over 100 festivals on 7 continents, sold to 150 countries, and has had theatrical releases and played on everything from Netflix and Showtime to Virgin Atlantic and JetBlue. He co-wrote the critically acclaimed novel I Am Martin Epstein and wrote 2 editions of Cheerful Subversive Guide to Independent Filmmaking. Dan's lectured in over 70 film schools around the world, and he co-founded the Slam Dance Film Festival. And we have the lovely Alicia Orsini La Vida at the end. She's an award-winning multimedia professional with over 18 years of experience in the film industry. She's currently working as a line producer in the New England region and is the president emeritus of Women in Film and Video of New England and a board member for Woods Hole Film Festival. She was the unit production manager on The Arborist, which Andrew created. So I'd like to start off this panel, how to get your film made, seen, and sold, with the first question. How did you first express the concept of your film, and how did you know the story was the right one to make in the first place?
I'll go first. I made a film about my husband. It was easy.
That was nice and succinct. I made a horror film in Concord, Massachusetts, because I got, like, the film gods gave me an incredible location. Like, you're a filmmaker and you get a location that's a once in a lifetime and you just go like, I'm gonna do it. It was COVID, and that really was it. It was a location, and it was this expansive mansion. It's actually where Greta Gerwig filmed Little Women. And I had it as my own little private movie studio but the rule was I had to do it in 18 months, because in 18 months it was gonna get torn down. And I could use that in the film too, so, you know, you're like, I'm not gonna not make this a movie here. So that is really how, and then it was like, come up with an idea based on a location, based on every room, based on the acres, the land, you just write from there.
Well, I struggle with anxiety, and so I knew that it was something, it was meaningful to me to do a film about it, and I knew that it would be meaningful to a lot of other people who struggle with anxiety. But when I was working on Nick News with Linda Ellerby, I had done an episode about kids with anxiety, and I just saw how much suffering there was and how profoundly helpful the right treatment was, and so it came out of that. And I just had a sense that it would be something that would resonate with people. The comedian part came later, which is a whole other story, but I'll leave it there.
And for me, I have a similar story to Andrew. It was the day after Trump got elected in 2016, and I had just been meeting with Jules Pfeiffer, who had written my previous film, Bernard and Huey, which played at the festival here. And he was on Shelter Island, and I went over, which is that way? I don't know, wherever, there. And took the ferry over to Greenport, was staying with my friend. Terry owned a motel. He had been an indie filmmaker in LA, but inherited this motel from his grandparents, and we're walking around, and it's very vintage looking. It looks just like 1974. And I said, and Terry was with me, and with Pfeiffer, we were talking about, you know, how bad could Trump possibly be? You know, Pfeiffer had done cartoons about Nixon and Watergate, so we were talking about Watergate a lot, and I said, Terry, we have Watergate on the head, this looks like 1974. He'd never let anyone shoot a feature there before, and he said, well, if you want to shoot a feature here, I'll let you stay here. And I said, great, we're making a movie. And that was it, yeah. So, and then, like you, that was, yeah. It just went from there.
Awesome, thank you, everyone. Now, what was the biggest challenge you faced in getting that film off the ground, from idea to actually shooting?
I'll go first again. Mine's a sad story. My husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I thought, we're going to get a film crew and get your stories told. So I knew I had to keep moving fast, and it worked out just beautifully. And he loved it, by the way. It wasn't mercenary. He was delighted to tell his stories.
I had kind of, like I said before, I had this location that was going to go away, and it was like a ticking clock, and I think I just had to, I just started writing, and I just sort of felt like it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I was going to write it, and I was going to start raising funds, and we'll see what the budget does, and it just snowballed, and it became a movie. But I mean, I always think there is something that like drives a filmmaker to begin a project. And again, in my case, it was a location and a convenience. It was COVID, and it was 20 minutes from my house, so it was like, yeah.
I think for me it was a couple of things. First, since this was my first feature documentary, there was a lot that I didn't know, a lot that I had to learn. I had been working in TV for production companies for many, many, many years, so I kind of had that down pat. But there was a lot to learn, so I think it took me longer than it might, well, certainly than my next one will. And also, as somebody with anxiety, decisions can be hard, and there are just maybe 1 million or 5 million decisions that come into play when making a film. So, you know, I think that was something. And the last thing was I knew that I wanted to follow one participant through a certain kind of therapy called exposure therapy, and it just took a long time. She was the last character that we found, and it took a long time to find that person. It was a really kind of complicated thing to find and to make happen. So.
I think for me, in getting it done, in getting to the starting point, I remember a conversation I had with this guy Terry, who owned the motel, who was generously letting us all stay there, and then also with my writing partner, who's a young guy, 25 years old. And we, for months and months, we had been trying to find a producer, someone to, you know, be our main producer, or at very least our once-a-week producer, you know, who could make the big calls. And then we realized that, you know, a couple months before shooting, we're not going to find that person, you know, because nobody has anything vested in it except for the three of us. And so we are you know, as Mark Duplass says, we're our own cavalry. And so once I think we made that like affirmative decision, which really, yeah, was not that far from shooting, I think then we were like, okay, now we just need to get it done. The biggest challenge was that we were 11 days into shooting when the pandemic hit, and we found out we were the last film shooting in North America. But I don't want to jump on the next question. So.
Did you finish?
Well, you'll find out.
Yeah, okay.
Get to the next question, yeah.
Okay, so I think this is a topic we all want to know. In the initial phase, how did you fund your film? Like, there's grants, investors, crowdfunding, personal funds. Which route did you choose?
I paid for it. It costs very little. It cost maybe $5,000 to make this movie. It's cost a lot more since then, but it cost $5,000 to make it.
Private investors, family, friends, friends of friends, friends of friends of friends, just basically that's it.
Mostly self-funded, working with friends who gave me good rates, doing a lot of stuff myself, especially in the beginning until I created more of a team later on.
So I have kind of a slightly more organized way I do it, slightly. So I start with crowdfunding. So I use Seed and Spark on this film, but I've used Kickstarter on others. And the goal is to kind of raise, 10% of your budget. Like, don't try to raise your whole budget unless maybe you're doing a short, because it's Kickstarter, not Kick Finisher. And but then I also get a fiscal sponsor, which is a nonprofit group, a 501c3. So I used, in my case, I used the Film Collaborative. And that's a great way for like rich people who just want to get a tax deduction. They just donate money. So got another 10 or 20% of the budget that way through donations. Then equity financing, and that's through that's investors. People who put in $10,000, $5,000, $20,000. We eventually found one guy who put in $50,000. And then we also, it was the first film I used a tax credit from New York State, which, by the way, we will finally get back in 2027. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But it, by borrowing against it from someone that helped us get through. So even though at the end of the day, we probably spent more in accounting fees than we did, it was still worth it in a weird way. And we actually got a couple COVID grants, which I rarely admit to, but we did. We used them, so.
Well, I'll jump off a little bit of that to say that, you know, for those of you who are maybe, are there any filmmakers in Massachusetts here? Massachusetts filmmakers? Okay, so in Massachusetts, you can get a 25% tax credit back if you spend over $50,000 in the state. It's a nice low barrier for entry.
Which is huge, because like California has $1 million cap.
Right, right. And
floor.
right now in our New England region, we have, Rhode Island has a tax credit. They have a cap on theirs, but they do have a tax credit. Connecticut has one also that's 30%, but you do have to meet $1 million threshold as well. But you can get the Massachusetts tax credit back in 6 to 8 months, depending.
Wow.
Which is pretty quick. So for, you know, of course you have to have your CPA, you have to have your books put together. So this is why, as a line producer, I'm always really pushing getting a good accountant. You've got to have good accounting on all of that. I mean, even for you're spending $5,000, but you still need to know precisely where all that was being spent.
Yeah, I could do that.
And then I'll talk just, you know, from working with Andrew, we had a fabulous producer who was bringing people around even to set and being like, look at what we're doing. You want to be a part of this and put money into it. So there was, you know, thinking about how the project even gets made in its post-production life during our filmmaking process, which I thought was a very, very smart move on the part of what the Arborist was doing. So I wanted to know too, you know, well, I've got some questions here too, if that's all right. So let's talk about the collaboration for what your teams look like. And yeah, so how did you build your team?
So I mentioned the three guys, a writer, the guy who owned the motel, and me. And then brought on a cinematographer, Elle Schneider, who I knew could shoot super low budget if we needed to, you know, drop the budget even lower. Because she had invented, she ran the Digibolex company for a while. We didn't use that camera because we did get a bigger camera. But anyway, and then she had a team that she had worked with in New York, so lighting camera, you know, pretty small, like a 5-person, you know, camera and lighting department. The sound guy wound up being the future brother-in-law of my producing partner. Yeah, I don't know. It was, you know, the nice thing about shooting in New York is you can find a good crew at sort of any level, you know. And then cast. You know, we had an amazing cast, many of whom we had not cast on day one. We got them like day 4 or 5 or 6. And again, being based more or less out of New York, you can find some great actors. So, that was sort of the bulk of the team. And then the composer I had worked with my previous film, and he's a neighbor and friend of mine. And yeah, in post-production, it was a lot of people who lived in my neighborhood that I could trade sourdough for, because it was during COVID. So it was literally people in a 2-block radius.
Sourdough starter.
Which, when you live in LA, you can do that because everybody works in film. So.
So the first 2 people that were on my team were friends and colleagues that I'd worked with for 20 years, my editor and my DP. And so, you know, so that was early on. And then, you know, I would say midway, Jonathan Gray, who's in the audience here, came on as...
Tall, good-looking fellow.
Yeah,
right
that
there.
one. He came on as my producer, and you know, at that point, I was like, okay, this film is actually going to get done. And it's true, he did help me to get to the finish line and help me with a million other things. He's also an attorney. So I would say, and then Jonathan helped also with, you know, when I would need someone for a particular, you know, set of skills, he helped me to find those people. My composer was someone I was watching the series The Shrink Next Door, and I just loved the music in that, and I reached out to this composer. He had never done a documentary, so this was his first documentary, which was fun. And so yeah, it was just, you know, as I needed the person appeared. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's all about having really strong head of departments. And so in my case, I just had a really good DP and production designer, and the 3 of us really worked together quite intensely from the beginning. But yeah, I mean, editor, I had a VFX, there's a lot of VFX in my film, so VFX creator. Just for me, it's all about head of departments. Just talking to them every day.
If you're making a low-budget film, you have to have good sound. Otherwise, they know it's a crummy film. So I got my cousin who does good sound on feature films. He did the sound. It's reverberating, isn't it? Is it bugging you? Okay, good. So I had him, and then the other person that was my collaborator was my son sitting over there. Woo. And he was the one that said, Mom, you can't use that picture. You just can't use that picture. So, you know, I would want to put friends in the photos, and he goes, Mom, nobody cares about white ladies laughing.
But there's a good point to that, is that you have to have those trusted people around you that will speak truth to the moment, right? And having those trusted
Even if you resent it.
Yes, even if you resent it, absolutely.
So I was wondering, how did you utilize your budget, especially if it was limited funds? Where did the money go, and how did you keep in budget?
I'll start. Food, catering. I just ran into my producing partner the other day, and he said the hardest thing was catering, and that's what he spent the most time on.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't have food, you don't have anything. And then paying minimum wage, we paid everyone. And then, you know, we use SAG actors, and I'm DGA, so we had a DGA team first and second, and you know, so you have to pay minimums, you know, on those. But then, you know, what's nice is then everybody knows that they're working for pretty much the same amount, you know, and that's where the money goes. And as long as you have enough to do that, I think, don't worry about post-production. Like, you can always finish a film on your laptop if you have to. So just make it through production. Make sure you can feed people through production and pay them through production. But beyond that, don't worry about raising the whole budget, because that's not going to happen anyway. So you'll never shoot your film. So.
Staying on budget, I was not great at staying on budget, to be honest. I really tried. It was hard, you know, I was trying to make deals with crew people and all that, and, you know, do what I could as we went along. But it was hard, and, you know, listen, as a filmmaker, I would say, you know, financial stuff is not my strong suit. So I probably am not a role model to answer this question.
The budget, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, I don't know. Everything Dan said, I agree with. Budget, it's too big of a question. I'll take the next question.
I agree.
It's too much.
Well, I'll jump in and say, as the person that unfortunately now is in charge, I want to just say, I went to film school to be a camera operator, and now I'm a line producer. And I ended up doing that because a lot of, I took a lot of detours along the way, but to what you're talking about, I needed to know the value of my work. And what is the scheduled minimum that you should be paid? And we can all do a little math here, but if minimum wage in Massachusetts is $15 an hour on an 8-hour day, plus time and a half on your next 4, because a 12-hour day, you should be making $210 an hour. A day, before taxes. How much are Taylor Swift tickets? Anybody? So, you know, but being able to do, especially on, you know, very low budget films, being able to say, hey, you're gonna get minimum wage, or everybody is getting paid $16, $17, $18 an hour, and then that's what we're dealing with, but being able to meet those scheduled minimums. And then if you're working with a union, there are scheduled minimums with that union. And those vary depending on where you are, but then you have to hire somebody like a savvy producer or somebody to help you navigate those things, and that's where I have found myself. And it lives rent-free in my head, so it doesn't have to live rent-free in yours. But especially when we were, you know, filming The Arborist and COVID, to the food point of it,
Yeah, it got really complicated.
food became a whole new thing. We could not serve food the way we used to. We had to have staff there to hand it out with gloves and masks and hand sanitizers in individual packaged meals. We had to space people out. Luckily, we were catering people outside, but we had to feed them well.
Yeah, and testing. Testing is
testing.
super expensive.
Testing every day, and we had a grant from a COVID testing thing as well to help us with all of that testing. That would have been made filmmaking completely unbearable without the testing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, having to overcome all that, which was why you have to surround yourself by really good people and feed them well.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Oh, I guess my question is next. I'm so sorry. I'm Grace Berry. Okay, well, no, I know. So I gotta say, I'll take umbrage with you on like, don't worry about post-production. No, it's true though, because you can kind of say, you know, I look at my budgets, and anytime I don't use an L&D, a loss and damage, that all goes to the post budget. And then, yeah, it's like, let's put it all on screen and then move later. But one of the things I love to try to talk about when we're budgeting is, do you have money for a festival strategy? Did you think about any marketing or anything? But what when you guys were doing your films, were you even thinking about festival strategy, or what was your thought process on what the life of the film was going to be afterwards?
Do you want to start on that one?
Yeah.
No, I did not think at all about it. And now I have 2 other films I've made since then, and that's all I think about. How in the world do I get these films out there? Yeah, so lesson learned. I can tell you anything you want to know about writing, directing, editing, anything you want to know. I can help you out. I really can. I've been a professor for 20 years in film. I cannot tell you a thing about distribution.
I can tell you about that, though. A festival strategy, of course. I thought of it, and I'm kind of in the middle of it. And there's like a bright, like.
Yeah, I know.
No, only you can hear it.
Only I can hear.
The dogs were freaking out.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people with their hands in their ears.
Is Andrew speaking?
I'm in the middle of. I just went through a long road of distribution contracts and negotiations, and if anybody has really specific distribution questions, I'd be happy to chat after.
I'll contact you.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily plan for it, but I knew that I wanted to do a festival run. I had never done anything like that before working in TV, so that was something that was important to me. And so I brought on a festival strategist at a certain point, and that really made a huge difference. We premiered at Doc NYC. And before that, you know, my idea was like, I'm going to get into Sundance, and then I'm going to get a $2 million Netflix deal. And of course, neither of those things happened, which is fine. I'm very happy with where we are. But yeah, I before Doc NYC, where we premiered, there were a lot of rejections. We got into Doc NYC, and then there were a lot of acceptances. So we submitted to a lot of places. And we probably got into maybe 25-28% of them, and we're like midway, maybe 3/4 into the festival run. And it's really been, we've been kind of using it now in a way as a theatrical, as our version of a theatrical run.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I've done festivals with good solid festival runs with all my films, so I kind of know how to do it a little bit. But and the thing is, you aim high first. You try to get into the big A-list festivals, and then give yourselves a few months to try that. And then there's also the question: do you start? At what point do you submit? Like, while you're still in, you've locked picture, but you haven't done sound yet. Anyway, I've always found I only really get into festivals once I'm really, really all the way done. Anyway, but. And part of it has to do with the calendar too, like where you are in the calendar. Do you wait the 5 months to hear back from Sundance, or do you? And I'm like, no, I'm not getting any younger. I'm like, I like to finish a film and go to festivals and show the film. I don't like to wait around forever. So we premiered at Woodstock Film Festival. John, you were there. And then we had a challenging time because it was post-COVID. It was like 2021. Festivals were just coming out of their virtual phase, but then there were still these crests of Omicron and Delta. So we kind of rode those crests. Like if there was a dip in COVID and festivals were going live during fall, we're like, we're going to those festivals. And festivals were pretty nimble then too. You could sort of make these last minute decisions. And then, you know, and then you go dormant for the winter variant. And then, oh, now we're going live and we're gonna hit every festival we can. And then meanwhile, you're also, I think this is the one advice I would give is you can't separate out like, oh, I'll do festivals and then do distribution, or I'll do distribution and then do festivals. You kind of have to think about them at the same time. And they're really two different trains of thought, but you just have to do it. So meanwhile, we were doing distribution, and the big thing there was we wanted to carve out all our rights. So we started with airline distribution, made a deal there, then went to foreign, and then that wound up including domestic, and then a different person for theatrical, and then different for, and we held educational, so, but maybe that's the next question.
Well, you know, I'll piggyback off of this if you don't mind, Grace Mary, is that part of the marketing of your films and thinking about the marketing while you're making the film as well.
Well, I always shoot a ton of behind-the-scenes footage.
Excellent.
And actually, our behind-the-scenes documentary is a half hour longer than the film itself. And yeah, and you start with a logo, like and that's the nice thing about doing crowdfunding campaigns. You can kind of test run your logo, your title, your poster design even, you know, early in that process, and you build that community. So yeah, we started thinking about all that stuff early. You know, and we knew when the 50th anniversary of Watergate was going to be, and so we kind of timed our release to that, and that was a pitch to distributors that, you know, and it worked, you know, that worked.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as someone who worked at production companies for many, many years, marketing was not something that I had to think about, didn't really know anything about. So I would say for me on this film when we were making it, I mean, it was really just social media, but at the point where, right, like when we were about to have our premiere, that's when we started really doing the social media. And we were trying to, you know, utilize, we had a lot of comedians in the film, and sometimes we would post and they would accept a collaboration, and we were like, yay, we'll get that many more, you know, followers. But, you know, I don't know that we did all that much during the film. I mean, we did also have press, had publicists on board for the premiere, and I think that was really helpful. So, I mean, there's another story now with distribution, but we'll save that for the next question or later.
Yeah, I mean, with most of I've been in distribution talks in the deal for a while now, so the distributor kind of has led the way and has given me feedback on marketing. So they've been doing most of it, actually. It is sort of funny, though, the story of my distributor, where right when I finished the film, I sent it out to distributors, and they were the first one. It was like you go out on like internet dating, and the very first date is like, I like you, and of course you're going to be like, no, like I want to see what's out there. So I like put the brakes on this distributor, and I went out and ended up coming right back to them, basically. It's like, and what is they were passionate, like they had interest, and they just responded, and they offered an MG that was way beyond anyone else that was giving. What's that?
Minimum guarantee.
Yeah, which is like a minimum, which is like an advance for your film. So, but before I went with them, I went with a sales agent, and we went out looking for much bigger fish. We didn't get them.
Right.
I came back, and I'm happy with my very first date.
I already confessed I didn't know anything about distribution. I didn't plan on it. I didn't take a single still while we were filming. No, but I've learned a lesson. So thank you, guys.
So I was wondering, were streaming platforms part of your strategy in your process for getting your film out there?
No, not for me.
Not yet, but it will be.
Yeah.
It will be the main platform for my case. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the plan was, I mean, I was really conflicted, to be honest. I mean, on one hand, I thought, okay, you know, everybody wants to be, or many of us want to be on Netflix, and it just feels, you know, everybody always asks, where is the film going to be? Is it going to be on Netflix? You know, and so I felt like Netflix. But then I started hearing, you know, some horror stories about people who had a film that was bought by Netflix or another streamer, and it was shelved, or there was no marketing that was done, and they had given away all their rights. That made me really nervous, and there were a lot of things that I wanted to do, and I didn't, you know, I knew that I wanted to do an impact campaign and other things like that, so I didn't want to take the chance that I would, you know, if I was lucky enough to get a deal on Netflix, that I would get that deal and then I couldn't do any of these things that I wanted to do. So Jonathan and I had many conversations about this, and I was really like wavering, but ultimately it was the right decision to not pursue the streamer route, and we will try to get a license deal later on, but I mean, should I go into what we are doing with distribution, or I'll wait till the next?
The big streamers, though, I mean, Jonathan, you can correct me, like the big streamers are generally nowadays not buying films. They're making their own. That's the new model.
Right.
They're making their own.
If they're even doing that, they're mostly making series. So,
oh yeah, but I mean, it's very hard to sell a film, an independent film these days, to the Netflixes and the Hulus out there.
And that was
sure, it happens, but it's really hard.
Yeah, and that was, I left that very important part out, but that was very much a consideration that they just weren't buying, and so you know, that contributed to the decision to go a different route, which we'll talk about later.
And I'll just add one thing, which is that, you know, a lot of times you'll reach out to these distributors and streamers and foreign sales companies early in the process, like when you get a script and you go to them and they go, oh, well, that's nice, let us know when you've got the financing. So you go out and you raise the financing, you come back to them, they go, oh, well, that's great, let us know when you get the cast.
Yeah.
So you go out, you get the cast, oh, great, let us know when you've got some footage, we'd love to see the finished film. And so you shoot the film, and then you go back, oh, great, let us know when you get into a big festival, and you get festivals. And you get into festivals, and you're premiering, and you go back to them, and they go, oh, well, that's great, but we really wish you would have come to us sooner. Yeah, sorry we can't help you. And it's inevitable, that will happen. Every conversation, and then that's it.
Well, I think it's a very interesting time for distribution and how we get our films seen in general. You know, so much of our content is basically on this little box that we carry around, this little computer on our phone, is where most of us, I think, are consuming content. And then we're seeing, you know, them at festivals, hopefully, or we're watching, you know, the 5th version of Love is Blind Sweden or something, you know. So, you know, it feels a little like, all right, you like you said, you want to bring in that distributor ahead of time, but then they're going to kick that can as far as they go because they're playing a numbers game. That's what it feels like, is that, you know, and your number is not coming up.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was depressing. What do you got, Grace Mary?
But the point is, the goal, you have to like think, you're you know, artists, whether you use a capital A or a small A, and the goal, you know, a film, if nobody sees it, like you can have it on Netflix, but if nobody knows it's on Netflix, doesn't mean anyone's actually seeing and you're not engaging with them. The only place you really engage with an audience is at festivals. Even if you get a theatrical release, you may still only get 2 or 3 people at a screening. But festivals uniquely bring in an audience, and you have Q&As, and you have introductions, and you have this. In my case, we had protesters. You know, we orchestrated. But the point is, you make it an interactive art form. You know, if nobody sees a film, it's like the tree in the forest. Does it really exist? It's just light and shadows. You know, there's no there to a film until somebody sees it. So don't get hung up on, oh, it must be theatrical or it must be a streamer. So in our case, like, we wound up selling it to 7 airlines.
And the airline thing is such a sleeper thing.
And people saw the movie that way.
Great.
And they engaged with us, and they write about it on Letterboxd or you know, whatever. You know, I'll do a Q&A in a plane if I have to. Yeah. And we made 60% of our revenue that way too. Like, it also paid.
That's huge.
Wow.
60% of the revenue from the airline rights alone.
Which is why we carved those out first and made that deal.
Are you taking notes?
I'm having my career on United Airlines.
Perfect.
There you go.
Taking notes. Now boarding.
That
Forget it.
was my next question. So, how do you market your film once you get the distribution? You have it there. How are you getting people to see it?
I want to go back to something. They all, there's like this saying about, find your audience, and I have a really interesting example from my first feature, which was a foreign language drama set in the country of Lesotho, which is inside South Africa. And that film had, in a way, it had a much different, bigger life than this one because it had so many people that were interested in that part of the world. And I traveled to so many festivals and spoke at so many schools, and it had, right, that nest of an audience that was particularly interested in Southern Africa. That film, everyone knows that film now in that world. Of course, now I've done a much more broad, like horror thriller, and you kind of lose. You're like, wait, where are those people? Of course, they're not there. You don't have. So, I always feel like people like with you've made a film about anxiety, and it's such an great. There's so many people that are going to be obviously interested in that. But even taking that idea further, like people, use children with brain tumors is like is that your organization?
It's my niece's organization making films with kids with brain tumors.
Yeah, I just find it interesting when films or advantageous when they really take advantage of telling a story that is really focused on that, and because there's your audience. I'm rambling.
Well, I will say. Go
The
ahead.
question was about marketing.
Yes.
Once we have distribution, I strap on a sandwich board, and I will go in front of theaters and pass out flyers, and did it in New
You
York,
actually do that?
Yes, I actually put on a sandwich board. It's true. There's video evidence of this. I stand in front of Lemley's in L.A.
What does it say?
Well, it's the poster for the film, And, I stood in front of IFC Center in New York. But that's how you meet people. That's how you literally bring in an audience. But even if you're not willing to physically strap on a sandwich board, Andrew, slacker, you've got to have that mentality.
Yes.
Whether it's a real sandwich board or a digital one, and you're out there on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. And I was doing TikToks of me in a sandwich board. Never count on your distributor. No matter who your distributor is, they're never going to be as they're not going to strap on a sandwich board. They'll barely have strap-ons, So they, but you have to have that attitude, because if you don't, no one will see the film, and they won't, why would they go see your film if someone else has a sandwich board, So you have to have that complete mentality, and you can't let go,
Right.
Because I've seen so many filmmakers who are like, well, I'm done, I'm exhausted, No, this is when it starts. This is when you got to get out there, because no one's going to be as passionate as you, so you strap on when you're.
I gotta say, there's a filmmaker in the film festival. Where will Sean go? The Comprazio. They were walking up and down Water Street with their poster. They had it everywhere they went with them. We're like, what are you doing? What's that film? They're like, it's playing over here. It's playing over there. But literally in that ilk, of we're doing it.
No, we had pro-Nixon protesters at every screening.
That you hired.
No, I didn't hire them. They were the audience.
Oh, they were the audience. Okay.
And then it was very Instagrammable or whatever. Right. But I made the banners. Shh, don't tell anyone that. This was that's the thing, is if you can get other people to do it with you, then that's even better. But otherwise, strap it on.
I know we're gonna get to some audience questions here in a minute, but one of the other questions that we have, and I know we've been talking a lot about.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing for distribution, because it's really exciting. And so in 2 weeks, our film is going to have its initial digital launch on a platform called Jolt.film, Jolt. And as some of you may know, there are a lot of platforms that are cropping up now. They're more like direct to, filmmaker friendly, direct to audience. And so Jolt they're amazing. Unlike iTunes or TVOD like that, it's very curated. There's a limited number of films. And they're it's run by, industry veterans from Sundance and Impact Partners, and they are going to great lengths to market the film and get the film to the audience that needs to see it. And so I feel very lucky to be, for our film to be on there. And so they really are, they're helping with everything from social media to paid advertising, paid ads, screenings, partnerships, and such. And it's an interesting model where there's then a revenue split for any rentals that,
Wow. So that sounds fabulous.
I know, it feels almost too good to be true,
Yeah.
but yeah, and there are a lot of other models that are, not a lot, but there are many that are cropping up these days to kind of fill, the hole that since the streamers aren't really buying, so it's a different kind of a way of going.
Well, just to keep on this theme a little bit, Andrew, you're entering into this world and ready to launch. What does that marketing look like? Are they really taking it all for you, or what's that?
Yeah, they are, but we're in the deliverables phase, which I've never lived through deliverables like I have on this project. It's mind-blowing when you make a feature film and the amount of work you have to put into that. So they're now reviewing all the final deliverables. So we haven't set a release date. Sure. So the film will have a release date when that's done. And it's yet to be determined whether it will have a theatrical run. The theatrical run will lose money, so it's kind of like, we got to figure that out. But then it'll be streamers. But they do the social media. I'm not a social media person, so I don't like social media, so it's hard for me to engage with a lot of marketing that I should be doing. That's why I could do a sandwich. I was just going to say I could probably do a sandwich board. Sunscreen and lunch, and I'm good.
Yeah. There you go. So, what is the marketing for Maura, for you? What does that market? What does the marketing look for you for your distribution?
We handled an agent, a distribution agent that a friend of ours, a couple friends of ours suggested, and so we're kind of, I keep saying to my son, we don't know what we're doing. We have to trust them.
Yes.
So I think I kind of just, whatever they tell us to do, yes.
Yes.
And so we'll keep you posted. Next year when we come back for something else, we'll tell you how it went, okay?
Well, something I want to ask before we then switch gears and we start talking to the audience is, I guess there's this dirty little secret that we all as filmmakers have, and that is that some of us have other jobs. that maybe this filmmaking isn't paying all of the paycheck, and that might be some of us. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what is that, especially for any young aspiring filmmakers here. We don't want to pull the wool over their eyes, and that there are other things that you need to do that are maybe adjacent to your industry. But what does that look like for you all? Either are you now out of that sphere, or are you still, weaving in and out of this filmmaker creative world? What does that look like?
I have 2 words of advice for young filmmakers. Marry well.
So there's your answer.
That's it. End.
Go ahead. Tell them about the real estate. Yeah, the 2 other words. Real estate. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'm the best one to answer this either. I spent 30 years working in TV and had steady work, and then this project, I started working on this project, and it's been kind of all-consuming. So I'll pass it along to Andrew.
Well, I appreciate the question because I think about it a lot, and I think that a lot of filmmakers sort of they continue a mystery about it. I did marry very well, but she's a speech pathologist who makes very little money. But I married well. But I have 3 little kids. It's a real issue for me. I'm a freelance film. I mean, I'm a cinematographer / videographer. I work for a lot of companies and nonprofit shooting. I'm Mass Audubon's visual storyteller. I work for Mass Audubon, not as pretty much as a part-time job, but I work all the time. I'm just shooting, editing, producing for nonprofits, for schools, for corporations, because it's how I have to make a living, and I have to, it's 3 kids. Like, I think that I say to my wife, a lot of these friends of mine are filmmakers. They don't have any kids. I'm like, what are we doing? I love my kids, but
The trick is to put the kids to work on the films.
They're not. They're too young. Oh, but they are. My kids.
They're never too young.
My kids are in. Yeah. They're in all kinds of ads and stuff. Yeah. So that's my answer.
Or marry well and don't have kids.
Yeah.
Or
This is
marry
a
well
whole
and
nother
don't have
panel
kids.
that Andrew and I are cooking up right now.
Okay, in my opinion, I teach at Columbia College in Chicago, and I tell my students, okay, just alert your parents that when you graduate from Columbia, they still have to support you for 5 years. 5 years. Do not take the job at Starbucks. Be an intern on every single possible film you can be on. Do anything you want, and I promise you, I know I'm right. I promise you within 5 years you'll have a paying career. Just trust that they'll see that you do a good job and they'll want you back again and pay you next time.
All right, are we ready to take questions from the audience? All right, I'm going to come down. So when I come down, I'm going to wait until I get to you, and you can ask of our panel. So, think of your questions as this is the music where I go behind the screen and I walk down the stairs. Do-do-do-do-do. You're thinking of a really important question, and it is coming to... Okay, who has a question? All right, I'm coming back here. See what I did there? We're having so much fun, you guys.
Thank you. I have a lot of questions, but one of them for Andrew regarding distribution. Can you get into a little bit more detail about how you got this deal? Because you said, did you have a sales agent who reached out to the distributor?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did have a sales agent. I was with a pretty big sales agency, and that was the reason I immediately stopped pursuing distributors. After right away I had a few yes. Problem is, there's a lot of distributors out there, shockingly a lot, that are saying yes, that are offering no advances, and they just are going to collect as much movies as they can, and just to have them, and it's no skin off their nose if they're not paying anything for it. So the sales agent, though, was more optimistic. Let's do this. Let's do all the big festivals. And it didn't get into any of those big market festivals. It was like really a hard year. It's like you're trying for the Sundances and the Torontos and stuff. And after a while, I realized these deals, that they did have some yeses, but they were so low that I kind of went to them and I pleaded, can you release me? Like, can we break up? And they had done a lot of work, and they were really magnanimous about it and cool. And they were like, yeah, we get it. The sales agent did say to me, he has never seen it so bad. Like the buying of independent films in like 20 years, he'd never seen it. So they let go of me, and then when they let go, I called up those distributors who I had originally had contact with, and you just have to, the reality is a sales agent's going to take a cut. There's so many people that are going to take a cut that you have to try to, in my case, it just made more sense to work directly with a distributor. I did get an MG. It wasn't what they used to be. It's pretty small. It's going to pay for a little bit of my debt, and I have a normal 70-30 split. 70% comes to me to start to paying off my investors, and 30% goes to the distributor. Of course, you know, I mean, I don't know how in the weeds you want to get with like the typical distribution deal. Of course, there's like the budget for marketing that they will have to do and recoup. And like there's those question marks, which we still haven't got there yet. But yeah, I have one, I mean, Dan was talking about piecemealing different territories. I did that on my first film. I had like Kino Lorber and Gaiam TV and all these different distributors, and it was such a headache to follow up on it. And I just said, after I broke up with the sales agent, I said, I just decided to go with one company, worldwide distribution, just to make my life easier, actually.
A follow-up question towards that, because my first film, I basically did self-distribute, and I didn't realize I was doing it, but I did really, really well. I got airlines rights and education screenings. It's still going, but it took over my life, and now I'm developing a few different projects, but I'm thinking more with brands. And so my question is, have you done any of that where you're pitching brands to help fund, but are they looking for an outlet for a film or short content first? And secondly, do you think it's important to build a team though, if you have the idea, you know, but you don't have money to pay the team? Because a lot of you talked about how you got your team, but did you have the funds to pay them at the beginning? Did you offer back-end deals? Like, how did you do it?
Let me just talk about brands. I haven't really done branded content, which is its own thing, but I have done a lot of product placement, which rarely you get money, but you can get food for your crew. Like we did a deal with Omaha Steaks, and they gave us like $5,000 worth of food, which, by the way, during the pandemic, that fed a third of the crew that stayed in that location during the first 10 weeks of COVID, and they would have eaten the gaffer if it hadn't been for the Omaha Steaks. So. You know, and coffee and things like that, wine, and that's been helpful, but it's rarely been involved cash exchanges. That was your first part of the question. Second part?
Building your team and what you offered them.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
did you do points or anything?
Here's a unique thing that I've done, which I now recommend, because I've done it on the last two films. On this film, it really worked. So this is what's called, like, there's this thing called the waterfall. Like when you're done, if you ever make money, where does that money go to? Like Andrew was just saying, you know, 30% to the distributor, and then it goes to the investors. So usually what happens is most people say, you know, 100% of the money you get back in, if you ever get money, goes to the investors, and then the next 20% still goes to the investors, and then it usually goes to like a 50-50 split between the investors and the creative pool. What we did that's different is we say, no, from the first dollar the film team, the LLC gets in, it goes 65% to the investors, 35% to the creative team. The creative team is cast, crew, cast and crew, you know. So, and it can be anyone. It doesn't have to be your whole crew, but department heads or whatever, but writer, director, everyone, and all the people on the cast. But then that percentage never changes. It's that percentage split forever. So this is a somewhat unique way of doing it. What's nice about it for the cast and crew is they get essentially gross points instead of net points, which is really, if you say that to actors and their agents, they get very excited about that. And you know, the advantage for the investor is if the film makes billions of dollars, they're making 65% instead of 50%. In the short term, the advantage for them is that you now have a motivated cast and crew who actually have real skin in the game and will show up at festivals and do publicity and help market the film. But the nice thing about it is it means that we have now written like 3 rounds of checks to everybody, investors, cast, and crew, even though we've never gone into profit, and I don't think we ever will. But people are feeling like they're making some money back.
But where's the distributor getting their money?
Well, they get it first anyway, so.
Oh, so this is after. You're talking about the money after
whatever the
distribution.
money that the LLC, because most of these films are LLCs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by the time the distributor takes whatever they're going to take, and you know that deal is very different for everyone. And then you pay off your debts and sales agent fees, and you know, and then you save some for residuals if you have residuals. But yeah, then the real money that comes in. Anyway, that's how I do it. It's very unique, but happy to talk more about it if anyone wants to try it.
Okay, got another question?
First of all, I am not from the world of film. I'm from finance.
Great.
And
From where?
I was listening to your discussions here. I didn't hear any numbers. I just heard, you know, oh, this and that.
Yeah.
It first goes here and then it goes there. So I have no way of understanding what the hell, how much money goes into it.
It's a good question.
What is the purpose of the distributor? What's his objective in the deal, both in a percentage basis and that? What is, other than the joy of creating something, is there any financial reason that someone in their right mind would give money for a documentary?
No, moving on. I'll let you all take that one. Somebody's got, he knows the secrets. No.
No, I mean, you asked, the end you asked about a documentary, but Dan and I represent, in this case, we represent fiction films. My film cost about like between it was like $1.3, $1.4 million. No, you try to be the unicorn that makes a ton of money. Of course, everybody wants to do that, but you lead with passion for storytelling, and you get partners that believe in that.
These streamers that presently exist, how much can you reasonably, for both the documentaries and for fiction, how much could you realistically expect from them under a minimum guarantee?
I'd like to tell you a little story. I directed my first feature film in 1976. It was called Towing. It was a comedy about having your car towed away. We got a distributor. They released the film. It was third in Variety when it got released. They took the money from the distribution and went to someplace in Yugoslavia. So we never got one single cent. Then within a year, this all happened. Then another distributor came in, took over the film, and they renamed it Fun Girls. Now, this is 1976. There was not a naked person in the film. There was not a sex scene in the film. I'm sure people thought they were getting something different than what they were getting. And then that person distributed the film to the south. The first one was mainly to the north. That guy distributed the film. He did quite well. They did very well. I went around all over the place to promote it. He went to, I think, Tahiti. I'm pretty sure he went to Tahiti with all the money. We never got the money. Then the third distributor came on within a year, maybe a year and a half. What do you think he did first? Who wants to guess what he did first?
Honolulu.
He renamed the film. He renamed the film, Who Stole My Wheels? And that film also made money, and we never got a cent from it. And about 3 years ago, I walked into my film class, and one of my students said, oh, you know, I watched your film Towing. I watched it twice. And I went, how? How did you watch Towing? He goes, oh, it's on Prime, you know, Amazon Prime. I have no idea who put it on there. Yeah, that's my money deal.
I'll answer the question.
Okay.
And I'll give you some real numbers. So our film, the last one I did, but really the last few, cost $300,000. About $200,000 of that came from equity investors, so real investors who put in.
Like him.
Yeah, like you on the next one, and you know, who put in $10,000, $20,000, something like that. We will probably make back. The investors will probably make back about half to 2/3 of their initial investment. No one's going to make profit, but they'll make back. You know, they won't have lost that much. In the meantime, though, we put out K1s to all the investors. They're able to deduct money every year. In the end, everyone will be able to deduct whatever they're not making back. The key thing, though, that is a phrase my friend Mike Ryan, who's a producer, came up with, which is cultural capital, which is not financial. It's like, okay, are you winning awards? Are you going to festivals? Are you changing the conversation? Especially if it's a documentary, the impact campaign that you're having. Are you, can you tell your accountant, hey, I lost money in a really fun, interesting way, Can you tell your friends at cocktail parties what you're doing? That's the cultural capital that you get from it, which may not pay much.
And well, we'd have to take some other questions.
But we'll talk later about my next film.
Because he needs to. And because, when we talk about the tax credits, that's our opportunity to say, the tax credit is, an investing way to say, hey, you need to carry a certain tax burden. Why don't you do it in this fun, unique way? It's like buying a painting, right? You're probably not going to make money on that painting, but like exactly what you said, you got this beautiful thing out there in the world.
You can pre-sell those.
And you can resell those tax credits too. Transferable in the state of Massachusetts. Anyway, yes, you had a question.
I'm going to try to put it in the form of a question. I've had the privilege of working in indie film for about 35 years we go back 30 years. I look at folks here, it's like a reunion. Distribution has changed forever, period. And it gets a little exhausting hearing conversations from a time capsule 10 years ago, right? Film festivals can be used to one's advantage. I hear about Sundance. You know how many documentary submissions were to Sundance last year? I looked it up, 1,736. You know
17,000.
No, 1,736 documentary films were submitted, and a total of 37 were chosen. 16 in competition, okay? So about 1% of those selected. Now, 16 films in competition, please. 4 of them are legacy films. 4 of them are lab projects. Do the math. 0.5% to go to a festival where your film is not going to sell. Look at that math. So there's a lot of myths going on. There's also a myth that you can't find an audience. I have an audience of 3 billion people in my hand. How do you find the audience? I don't know, do the work. Who would create a product, a widget, when you didn't know that there was a market for it at all, and you had no idea how you're going to get it on the shelves? You can figure it out. And with Anxiety Club, it's been a pioneer sort of mission for me because we have been thinking about this since day one and building an audience from day one. We have the benefit of the Anxiety and Depressive Association of America. We got Comedy Gives Back. We've got the Yale Women's Mental Health folks. We're building an audience and taking our time doing it and trying to use the festivals in a manner that serves the commercial marketplace. You got a distributor that give you an advance, they give no advance. They take 30, 35%, and then they just dump your film on platforms. What does it mean? Because when they take your film and take their 35% and they put it on Amazon Prime's taking 50%. Do that math. No marketing, no advertisement, period. You go to die. What if you built an audience, found an audience, took advantage of platforms like this? Question mark.
Well, you're the one who asked the answers. But that's why I like, the airline thing is very straightforward. Like, you go to an airline distributor and they either can sell it or they can't sell it, but the money's pretty straightforward. You get a check, and that's it. Which is great. For how long? Most of those deals last for like a year and a half, but some last longer. I don't know.
Do you negotiate individually with each airline?
The airline distributor. There's about 8 airline distributors who that's their specialty, and then they negotiate with the 185 airlines that are out there. And yeah, if you get it, you get it, and if you don't get it, they tell you right away, pretty much. So, but another interesting avenue I found was libraries. We wound up selling our film to 800 libraries in 48 states. This is the DVD now, in 48 states and 7 provinces. We're huge in the Yukon. And there's not a lot, and there's not a ton of money in it, but
how much are the checks?
$2,000 we got for that. But we kept our educational rights, so for academic libraries, which we sold it to about 20 places, but Stanford, NYU, Northwestern, we made about $7,000 because they have to pay more because they pay for public performance rights. So we're getting like $300 for each of those.
Airlines is the same thing, $2,000 per airline?
Or? No, that's a nice thing. Is airlines usually pay between $20,000 and $30,000 each. Yeah, and so even if your airline distributor is taking 30% and you're getting a check for $20,000, So in our case, we made $95,000 on airlines for a $300,000 film.
I feel a little bit better about my baggage fees now.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah. And here's a weird quirk. Airlines, you don't pay residuals to actors or DGA or WGA, which I'm telling the DGA to change that. But you know.
Well, I want to say something else too about what you were saying earlier is about film festivals and the audience that's built in here. We have had a sold out film and had to have encore films pretty much every night. Tonight it's Anxiety Club, sold out. Woo! Sold out, right? You know, but to your point, there's an audience there. So is it what is that? Really having this festival being part of a strategy of getting seen is a really bigger important thing than you think it is.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hi, very quick question. Do you all have agents? Are you happy with them? And do you deal with agents? Can you, yes?
No. No to everything for me.
Yeah, no.
I have an entertainment
Can't stand
attorney.
Can't stand them. Okay.
I have an entertainment attorney.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
same.
important.
You
Yeah.
had that attorney 20 years ago when you made that film that got stolen.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Get that attorney to go talk to Amazon right
Yeah,
now.
right, exactly.
Okay, we have time for a couple more questions.
Just my
Oh,
short
sure.
answer is I don't have an agent. I have had in the past.
Yeah, me too.
But I deal with agents. As a director, it is more important for me to have good relationships with talent agents at all the different agencies
yeah.
and management companies, so that when I am casting and I'm 3 days away from shooting, I can call someone and get actors. Those relationships are actually more valuable to me. So, yeah.
I'm going to come here, and then I'm going to come over here.
I think she had her hands raised. Thank you. Thank you so much for this great conversation. I have maybe a little bit of a weird question, so feel free to just kind of move on. It's about archiving your own work. I'm thinking about it because I've talked to filmmakers who had participated in this festival, the first Black Women's Film Festival in New York in the 70s. And they showed them works, and then 50 years later, some of them had lost their films, just didn't know where the films were, the elements, or they hadn't kind of saved their work, right? And are trying now just to kind of go back and look for it as people are getting interested in it again. And so I'm wondering if you're thinking yourself about archiving, saving your own work, and how important it is, and how you're doing that kind of stuff. Thank you.
Maura, you want to start?
Oh, yeah. So I thought that I had the 35mm printer towing. I have only about maybe 20 minutes of it. I kept thinking those cans were all the film. So the only way I have it is on VHS and DVD copies of it, yeah. And again, I don't know how it got put on Amazon, yeah.
Has your entertainment attorney contacted Amazon?
I'm a flake. I have not even told her about it. I keep forgetting.
Well, just to jump off that, as you guys are entering your distribution, do you talk about archiving at all? Is that part of the conversation?
Yeah, it's a chapter in my book. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually the nice thing about library distribution is now my film is archived in 800 libraries.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
For free. I didn't have to pay them. They paid me. But yeah, I think about it, especially every time I look at the negative of my first film sitting in my living room, and my wife says, "Why is the negative of your first film sitting in our living room?" And
You've archived it there.
yes, well, and especially after the fires in LA,
Yeah.
one of my producers lost his house, and I know that was where one of our DCPs was, so that was one of my backups got burned up. You know. But I always make sure that we spread out the assets, but it's a problem and
Good
a
question.
challenge, and no one's and it costs money to do it. To get my 35 negative transferred, would cost $4,000, $5,000, and then and Criterion Channel doesn't call you back. They ghost you when you start, and when they say, "Oh, we're interested in the film," and then they don't call you back. Well,
I could say one interesting thing on this topic. My first feature film was HD, and I did just a year ago. I got into AI, Topaz AI, and I up-resed a HD film to 4K, and that was really cool and fun. I was like, oh my God, it looks so much better than it ever has before. So I guess that's kind of archiving.
Local film archives.
There you go.
Very nice.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Chicago Film Archives.
Good, good. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been so amazing already. So I have a question with all the distribution cautionary tales. What does a good theatrical distribution deal look like? And what I mean by that is
It looks like 1989.
Okay. So like, is there like a certain P&A spend, a publicist, press, getting reviews, how many cities, how many screens? Like, what would that look like? And if I may ask a follow-up question to that, at what point is it better to go back to the drawing board and say, I can reproduce that by hiring a publicist, getting a service deal or exhibitors and just doing it kind of myself if I can't get someone to commit the spend that I want. But I don't really know where that line in the sand is. Like, let's just say, pretend that you have a fiction feature that you want to get out into the world. I'm just saying theoretically, guys. Like, what's a gal to do? Like, you know what I'm saying? When do you do it yourself and when do you let the distributors just do their thing?
I think, and I've done self-distribution before, and also this sort of hybridized distribution. It has to do with you. Do you have the self-distribution doesn't necessarily cost money, but it does take time, and so it depends with your own. Do you have a job? Do you not have a job? Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? Do you have the time to do it yourself? If you have the time and the inclination and the energy to do it, then you'll probably make more money doing it yourself. If you don't have the time, inclination, or energy, then hand it off to someone else and not make as much money. It just depends.
Quick question here. There you
go. Thank you guys all for your very valuable insights. It's been very helpful to hear everything you guys have had to share. I'm just curious about it's obviously hard to come up with a good story and a compelling story. And then something even harder to do is working with the realities of film and budgets and the like. So how do you, I guess, Andrew, this is kind of probed by your comment on all of a sudden you had this great location that fell into your lap, but it's for doc and narrative filmmakers alike. I'm curious about how you balance letting your creativity just run wild with thinking about constraints you have to deal with when you don't have unlimited talent and resources and money. Sometimes people talk about don't use these as constraint, use them as guidelines. But I don't really know what that means or how to kind of go from there. So just curious if you have any tips and tricks on coming up with your story from that.
Yeah, it's really a good question, and in my case, it was constantly like I was rewriting a lot to try to reduce just to make this thing cost less money. As we were on days off between. I mean, one example. I had very elaborate scene where a boy is in a canoe, and he starts following feathers through the water, and then out of the water rises this kid creature dressed up as an animal, and it was very creepy and eerie, and then suddenly his canoe flips over and he's thrashing and is going to drown, and his mom runs down and saves him. It was this elaborate action scene that in my mind it was I know how to direct this, I know how to do it. But the practical factors of scuba divers. Just so many things that were what? We have to pay for all this bullshit? Scuba diver, so many elements of safety that I realized that I had to change it. But this is a happy ending story. In this case, you then change it and you leave more up for the imagination. So you see the boy, he sees this creature, the creature flops into the water from the shore, and then you cut and the mom comes and finds him on the shore. You just have to make creative solutions. And I don't know, I feel this is sort of a generic answer, but coming up with creative solutions all the time, every day, to adjust your original vision is one of the jobs of being a director, I think.
But I'll echo something you said before, which was your department heads. And when there's a problem like that, the people that you've gathered around you on your team, you're all right, guys, what are we going to do? How do we solve that problem? How do we make it happen? Which is a lot of workshopping that you guys did around each scene to still tell the story, but in a way that worked for everybody. All right, other questions? I'm coming to the back, going to the back. I'm going to the back, here we go. This is the walking to the back song. Da 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 da. There you go.
Thank you. I have a quick question. I arrived a bit late, so I don't know if you already answered or said it. Like, what is your strategy to make a film? I don't know if it's understandable what I said.
What's like well, let's ask it this way. What's your strategy to approach a film?
Yes, exactly.
When you approach a film, like Andrew, we already heard from, in this particular case, for this film, you had a location, but is there like, yeah.
Is this for documentary or narrative or?
Let's start with documentary, especially Anxiety Club. I mean, you brought it from Anxiety.
Wait, if you say that part,
It's really fluid.
Say that again.
Like any kind of movie, but like what you did, like right now or in general. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's really fluid.
right.
How does it come to you?
Well, I mean, I think, it starts with an idea, and sometimes that idea, it stays the same idea throughout the making of the film, and sometimes it evolves. But I think it starts with an idea, and maybe you talk to people and get feedback on that idea. You surround yourself with people who know more than you and who can help you, figure out what is your next step. What's the next step to make this happen? And one thing that I did a lot of, especially because this COVID was right in the middle of the production process, I took a lot of like webinars. Really, when there was anything on any part of the process that I didn't know about, I would go to these webinars. I would talk to people who I wasn't asking anything of them other than, maybe a half hour of their time. So people who knew more than me, people could help me, people who I could brainstorm with. I think that was really helpful for me.
And how long does this movie took you to make it?
It took about 7 years. I mean, not full-time 7 years, and COVID was in the middle of that, but I started, the first shoot was the end of 2017. And then, it was on and off during that period. Yeah, long time.
We have an alumni question. This is from Compatriots, if you were here last year.
Hi, so my name is Spencer. I had a feature here that premiered here last year, and I'm currently going through a lot of the stages that you guys did. We have a distributor now. It's a very interesting case. But I would like you to all talk about, or you don't all have to talk about it, but as I experienced this over the last year of being on this festival run and talking with distributors, there are a lot of seedy people who are trying to get their hands on your project that you might have spent 8 years on thinking about, trying to take a cut of something without any sort of, any sort of stake in the game, basically, and they're trying to just bury your film like you talked about. So how do you suss that out? It took me a year of going through a few of these kind of people and being led on, and then figuring out like, hey, this person isn't in it for the right reasons, and they don't actually believe in my film. It can be really hard when someone's like, yeah, you're gonna get into Sundance, you're gonna get into South by. Just give me my 5%, give me my 10%, give me $5,000. All it is $5,000, that kind of stuff. I'm sure you guys have had experience with those kind of people. So yeah, I think it'd be really helpful to hear your strategies to sussing that out.
My main thing is do your due diligence with anyone, and this goes from casting. If you're talking about an actor, like talk to 3 or 4 directors or producers that have worked with them before. If you're talking about a crew member, but also this extends very much into what you're talking about. If you're talking about a sales rep, talk to 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 filmmakers that have worked with them. Same with distributor. But it is inevitable, as Maura quite evidently showed us, that at least every one of your distributors will go bankrupt at some point or screw you. I mean, that's just true, you know, that, and so my solution to that was, okay, well, let's divide the pie into at least 5 or 6 places, and so even if one of them goes bankrupt, you know, they didn't take all our rights with them, you know, and I think that's been my solution to that. But I think doing the due diligence as best as you can, but also everyone's going to say something horrible about their distributor, and so you have to know that. But are they actively screwing you, or are they passively screwing you? Not that it necessarily makes a huge difference, but you sleep a little better if at least, you know, they're nice about it.
And have a good lawyer who is making sure that you're not doing anything. And
lawyer up.
And I think this is, you know, maybe a little idealistic, but like trust your gut, because sometimes like we know something is not feeling quite right, but we just ignore it because, you know, we want to move forward with somebody. But I think sometimes we know in our guts when something isn't right.
I ask, what did you say earlier about they're asking you for $5,000?
You know, like festival consultants or.
Oh, those guys are just, that's, no. If they're finding you on IMDb Pro and they're like pitching themselves as a, no, like, I just.
No, just buy my book.
I reach out to people. I reach out to my producer friends, my filmmaker friends, directors, and I say, I noticed you worked, I'll cold call a director who I'm like, oh, I noticed you worked, and you know, with the current distributor I have, I got good vibes from a lot of people, and I had good vibes myself, so I went with it, but I don't know how it's going to shake out still.
I'll say festivals are a resource to that as well. Like, you know, talk to the people here at the festivals.
Yep.
Yeah.
And filmmakers are like, I think it's all of us, I can speak for all of us, we would love to answer anyone's email or like beyond this thing, like it means a lot to us. Like when we've been through painful filmmaking chapters and it's just like, we hate what we're doing and we want to like, or parts of what we're doing. It's so meaningful to like be able to connect with people and help them. I mean, I certainly welcome anyone to reach out to me.
I agree.
Grace Mary's going to ask our last question, but before we do, we're going to remind you that the festival, the film festival, it happens during this wonderful week, but it actually happens all year round. And you can become a member of the Woods Hole Film Festival, and we can continue these amazing conversations. These filmmakers are going to be around, and as you've heard them say several times, they want to be here for you. And that's really what I find personally makes this festival so exciting is how much, how very filmmaker forward it is, how very forward we are in sharing all the information and learning from each other, finding the red flags, finding the success stories. So with that, Grace Mary?
So we were wondering, based on everything you guys have talked about, all the challenges that you go through, what would you tell an aspiring filmmaker they want to make their first feature film documentary? What advice would you give them?
Maura?
I guess just jump in and do it. You know, just do it and worry about all the things we're telling you about after the film is in the can. You know, that old expression.
I would say pursue an idea that is so different than mainstream, that is so outside of the box, and that you can do. I mean, it's really hard to come up with these ideas. It's like catching lightning in a bottle, an idea that you can do cheap, and that is just like, I love those stories when films, every once in a while, they break through because they're so out there and different. That's my advice.
Similar to what I said before, I would reach out to people who you admire and who have maybe done what you want to do before, and you know, you're not asking them for a job, you're not asking them for money, you're just asking them for some of their time and to hear their story and to just make connections that way and learn from other people.
I like what Andrew said. I think, you know, you're never going to replicate the success of a big budget Hollywood movie, so go big or go home. Like, come up with something interesting, fun, unique that you can do. And it doesn't mean everything has to be fun, unique, and it may not be successful, but so then keep your budget low, too, you know. And the other thing I would say is that one reason I start with crowdfunding usually is because the hardest person to convince that you're making a film is usually yourself. But if you have 100 or 200 or 300 friends that gave you $5 each, now you have at least a moral obligation to make a film for them, you know. But by doing that campaign process, it usually does help convince yourself that you can do this and that you are doing it. And then something that Robert Altman, who was my mentor, said is pick a start date, tell everyone you're making the movie, and the train's leaving the station, you can do it. So I picked March 3rd, 2020. What could go wrong? So, but I think it's still good advice. Yeah.
Can I just add one thing? Just, we've been a little bit gloom and doom about distribution, which everyone has been this way lately.
This was the good news.
Okay, good. Okay. But when Anora won the Academy Award, I wasn't a huge fan of Anora. I liked it, it was okay, but it wasn't my market. I went into my class and said, guys, we've won. We've won. A film without name value in limited locations has won an Academy Award. I mean, so all of us independent filmmakers have to realize we can get through the door, okay? Yes.
We did Moonlight, remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, what, we didn't win?
No, I know, it's so nice. It's
Well,
so nice when...
Maura, I'll top that. I went into my class, because I teach at Chapman, and I said, Sean Baker, he's the blurb on the back of my book that I assigned to you, which is... And they're like,
Good.
oh, for a minute, they respected me.
Well, so just a couple of things. Each year for the past, 5 or 6 years, we've had at least 4 films from this festival that have gone on to be shortlisted for an Oscar.
Yay.
Some have been nominated. So, that's a whole other story, but independent film matters. So yes, the financial part of it may be challenging, but the making of it matters. And it matters to a lot of people. But one thing I was going to say is just look up Hundreds of Beavers. Those guys, do you know that film?
Yeah.
And there's a case study on what they've done. And that, they worked really hard to do it. It's a crazy film, but they made people want to see a crazy film. If they can do it, everybody can do it. So.
Thank you.
So I will say that my last piece of student advice that I give out is that go to your parents and ask them to help you open a Roth IRA. That's the first thing. Go drive to your local airport and figure out how to do it without using a GPS so that when you're asked as a PA, as talent, you actually know how to do it and you haven't done it the first time when you're hired on a set. If you are calling yourself a director, go direct something. Do a 48-hour film project. Go make something, whatever it is. And then join organizations that are around you, like, and here's my pitch, for the Women in Film and Video of New England. These are your people. These are the people that understand the plight that you're going through. And then, of course, go to festivals to watch. Do what you're doing right now. Ask the questions. And these are your people in the community that are going to lift you up. So I want to say thank you to all of you for lifting us up today. Thank you to all of you for lifting us up today in this independent community. Thank you all for coming. Have a great afternoon.